Peace, 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 and salam alaikum. It's your brother Tavon Sweno, aka the Orthodox Moor, and it's the Sunnah of Allah. And hopefully, shortly, I'll be joined by an atheist homie by the name of Why So Religious. You can check him out. I got his information in the description box below. He has a channel that you can go check out. But yeah, I was watching one of his videos as very recently, and he was talking about a concept that was intriguing me. Hold on right quick. I'm trying to type to him in another format right quick. Go over here right quick. Let him know that I went live. But yeah, he was talking about the concept of translations of the Quran in English and other languages and whatnot, and people being forced to learn stuff in Arabic, etc. And so we were having a conversation on Veli Vision G Block, and it was also based upon a conversation a previous day to where people were speaking about Surah 65 Ayat 4, which I just did a video about. So if you haven't seen that video, go check it out right quick, because we're definitely going to be talking about that if my brother continue right quick. Hold on right quick. My apologies, family. I think he wanted to go live to see if the notifications would come up. Because he wanted me to go live real quick first. I'll see if he shows up. He's still not here. Somebody's watching. So again, as a recap, so yesterday, Why So Religious was on a channel that I frequently called the Veli Vision G Block, which is a channel where a lot of people from Speakers Corner, get together and speak about a lot of different things, particularly atheism and religion and whatnot. And the conversation of the translations of Surah 65 Ayah 4 came up. And Why So Religious made a very good point in terms of if Muslims have an issue with how the Quran is being translated by Muslims, that they need to take it up with the Muslims translating the Quran and not the people citing the Quran that's being translated, which I thought was a very, very fair criticism. Oh, okay, he's wanting me to email him to join right quick. Okay, got it. 2 seconds, family. My apologies again. Got an email this to your buddy. And so I thought that was a very, very fair criticism in the sense that when I look into the Quran personally for myself, I have to do a lot of retranslation because I notice that there's a lot of words and brackets that aren't there in the Arabic and whatnot that change the meaning of how I take the verse and whatnot. And so I also noticed that when I'm looking into it, that why is it taking so long to load? I'm also noticing that when I look into it, that the translations seem to be based off of Tafsir and whatnot. And so it seems as though Tafsir is being baked into the cake of the translations of the Quran. So as someone who isn't a native Arabic speaker, I'm being forced to have to learn Arabic whether I want to or not, just so I can get a decent translation of the Quran. I got to make my own, basically. And so, hold on. Oh, there he is. Bam.
All right. There you go, brother. Thank you for having me on, bro. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. So, yeah, I want you to explain your position and not have me butcher it.
Right, okay, so one of my main positions here is, and the first one is most important. Nowhere in the Quran does it say that knowing Arabic is important to understanding Allah's word outside of the Arabian people at the time of Muhammad, where it says that he sent down a Quran in Arabic made easy for you, and you is obviously the people Muhammad is speaking to at the time. And he also says the only reason that it's in Arabic is because the Arabian people had not received a messenger in their own language, and he did not want them to say on the day of resurrection, why have you not sent us a messenger in our own language? Can we agree with this so far? Do you have a problem with where I'm starting?
No, not at all, not at all. Because as a Quranist, I come from a very similar format to where like in Surah 41, ayat 44 says a very similar concept that basically it came down to Arabic, so the people around Muhammad wouldn't doubt that it was coming for them. You know what I'm saying?
And another thing was so that they wouldn't have to go to the people of different languages and try to learn from them, and essentially get what is happening nowadays, where different schools of thought are teaching different schools of the religion, and not so much the religion.
Interesting. And so to be clear for the people listening, real quick, you're atheist, correct?
Yes, I'm an atheist, but when I read the Quran, I read it as how I see the Quran speaking for itself, where it is the perfect book. It uses the word hadith 26 times, never does it mention anything. The only time it mentions hadith outside of the Quran is when it's calling into question which hadith will they believe outside of Allah's hadith, which sunnah will they follow outside of Allah's sunnah.
Interesting.
So that's how I read it. And when I speak to Muslims, I never bring up hadiths until they bring up hadiths, or if they bring up a practice that is strictly from the hadith and cannot be related to the Quran. That way, if I'm going to speak to a Muslim, I speak strictly Quran. And then it's up to them to bring up outside sources or outside faiths, practices that Allah never says in the Quran, such as, let's go with prayer. I know this is outside, but I want to give my explanation of how I come at it. So with prayer, right? Most Muslims pray 5 times a day. This is a hadith invention because Allah says in the Quran, right? That it's when you see the first sight of the sun at the when the sun is at the highest, and when the sun is the last sight of the sun into night. And then it also says the nighttime is for remembrance of Allah. It never says that it's for prayer. And there's actually a huge verse in the Quran talking about how Muhammad used to stay up 1/3 of the night, 2/3 of the night, and that Allah wishes ease upon him and that and the followers, and that all he has to do is remember Allah at night, and that technically that prayer is recitation of Allah's words, whatever is easiest for you to remember, even if it's one word. It says that, it's saying that that's most important, is just whatever you can remember, and what's easiest for you is what prayer is. So have I stated anything that's not true so far?
No, not to my knowledge. And what I find interesting about that is that I don't think a lot of Muslims know that's where they get the concept of reading Al-Fatiha. You know what I'm saying? Because it's the shortest thing they can say. But yeah, go ahead.
So with my point about this concept of Arabic, because a lot of Muslims, they'll say, "Oh, well, you don't know the Arabic." Well, so what? And then my argument is always, as soon as you present a verse from the Quran that says knowing Arabic is essential or even slightly important to understanding Allah's words and message, all right, his message, then maybe I'll take the time to learn Arabic. And then if Muslims or Hadith Muslims, I'll even open it up to the Hadiths. Okay. And there's not even a Hadith in the 7,000 Bukhari and something like 5,000 Muslim, and then add Ibn Majid and add all these people. There's nowhere, Abu Dawood, there's nowhere that says knowing Arabic is important. So have I said anything wrong here so far?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. So, and Muslims don't like hearing this. And I'm not, of course, when I say Muslims, I'm not speaking about every Muslim. I'm just saying in general, they, especially Hadith Muslims, what a lot of people would call Muhammadans, they don't like to hear this, right? Because they don't want their faith, for one, to be classified in something outside of what their belief is. Now, when it comes and that's why they'll speak over me. They'll say things that, they'll attack me with ad hominems. But you notice in that channel that we were just at, they never try to refute me. They never try to refute it. They just try to say their own personal reasons. I
Yeah.
asked them specifically to bring the verse that
Right.
supports it. Everything, according to Islam, everything that is outside of Allah's sunnah, his hadith, is technically bid'ah, is innovation.
Ooh.
Now, but what Muslims don't want to accept is that they don't want to accept that, because then that means that their hadith system, where they follow Muhammad's making rules, everything from fucking music to changing things, like where Allah says inside the Quran that he prohibits, he makes haram the eating of dead flesh, right? Dead animals. But yet Muslims will follow the hadith where Muhammad said you can eat dead fish because the sea that comes from the sea, because water purifies everything. Now, in their mind, they say, well, Muhammad's words and actions in his real life are revelation. Well, if that's true, then why didn't it make it into the Quran? And if you're saying that, then you're saying that Allah has two revelations. One of them was compiled by man, and the other one you agree with was just memorized at the time of Muhammad. And now we can get back on topic. I think I summarized where I'm starting at when I start making my claims.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes a lot of sense. That's a very rational approach as far as I'm concerned.
So where I'm coming from with my claim is first this: you can't provide anywhere where Allah says in the Quran that Arabic is important to understanding his message. You can't you can't find it in hadith either. So if you look outside of that, why are Muslims saying this? They're saying it because then they can shut down, in their eyes, all criticisms of people they disagree with. And when I made the point that if I read the 7 verses and I say at the same time on corpus.quran.com, if I read those 7 verses and I say, I agree with this makes me a Muslim, I believe in Allah and that Muhammad is his prophet, instantly they'll accept my Islam. They won't say, oh, well, he didn't know the Arabic. You get what I mean on that stance before we move on?
Yeah, that's interesting. So you could take the English version, right, and not know the Arabic and give a shahada, and they'll take it.
Yes. But if I criticize it, they'll go straight to, well, you don't know the Arabic.
Right.
And I made that point, but they talked over me and they didn't want to address that and refute it.
Yeah, I don't think they wanted to. I don't know that they necessarily even understood your point, honestly. Like
I think it's a very simple point, though.
I don't disagree. Like, so I had to make the point after you got off the panel that, so like, so the Shias talk about, for instance, that Ali has a Quran that he wrote that's in different orders, and some of the Shias say that he actually has his Tafsir written into the Quran, right? And so I was pointing out to Zubaydah that I was like, as a Sunni, you wouldn't take that Quran. She was like, no, obviously not. I was like, so one of the points that Why So Religious was making was the fact that basically that the Tafsir is, different schools of thought have their Tafsir baked into their translations of the Quran being put out in English, etc., whatnot. So okay, as an English speaker, and correct me if I'm wrong if that's not what you were saying, but just for me as a Quranist, I think most Quranists deal with this themselves, like the English speaking ones at least, or whatever language that they speak in, that they have to retranslate the Quran based upon the direct Arabic. Like go to QuranCorpus.com and see what it's saying in the word by word transliteration, because the direct Arabic has stuff all, like, or it doesn't have the words in brackets or whatnot, or it doesn't have the extra Tafsir, etc. For instance, like I'll argue with a lot of Muslims, for instance, that try to say that the Quran says that Ishmael was the child of sacrifice. When I go to versus Isaac, for instance, right? When I go to that surah, Ishmael's nowhere in the surah, but Isaac mentioned twice. Mm-hmm. And when I take them to the verse, it always blows my mind. It's the ones talking about the Arabic that point out that Ishmael's there in the brackets. I'm like, wait a minute, but he's not there in Arabic. Correct. And then they have to go to the verse and read it in Arabic. So I'm like, wow, are all these Arabic speaking Muslims actually reading in the English translations as well?
Well, okay. So just so I can, your point that you feel I'm making is my point later on. Okay. I could progress to that.
Okay.
But so far we have what I've said, which is not in the Quran, not in the Hadith, knowing Arabic, and that they want to when if you say something is beautiful and it makes you a Muslim, not knowing Arabic, they'll accept your shahada. If you criticize it and you don't know Arabic, they feel they can shut you down for not knowing Arabic. Okay, so
Yes.
that's
Yes.
four main premises.
Yes.
The next premise, um, the next premise is a logical, philosophical point that I try to make, and I think it went above their heads. So nobody says that you have to know Mandarin to understand the Tao. Okay,
Facts. I
nobody
thought that was a great point.
and nobody says that you have to learn ancient Greek to understand the teachings of Socrates and Plato. Nobody says that you have to know. I don't know, like nobody would say to Shakara speaks that he doesn't, since he doesn't know the language of the Yuban people, that he can't be an African spiritualist. Okay, so nobody's making these claims, but a lot of Muslims are making these claims that you have to know Arabic. So this is what's called special pleading. This is saying, well, no other instance in the world is this a case, but for this one, it is a case. And a lot of times, the example I use is most medical studies come from English speaking nations, because just this isn't me trying to be like cultural superiorist, but it is true. English speaking nations tend to be more advanced than neighboring nations or other nations in general.
Yeah, English is
Okay,
the lingua franca at the moment, so
but
it's gonna be more.
nobody is
Yeah.
claiming that the doctors who are using English speaking and writing practices to diagnose, to even perform surgeries, okay, that they could not be translated to help people in their everyday life. But yet for some reason, a book based off of spirituality and belief has to be known in Arabic.
Yeah, and like you said, that the book itself claims that it's going to be clear and easy to understand.
Yes. And but that's the side note. The real thing is that even with something such as medical practices, which has hypotheses, and then it has diagnoses,
Right.
and then it has surgical actual performing things that could kill people if it's done wrong, for
Right.
the most part start in one language and then gets translated into other languages that
Yes.
actually saves lives.
Yes.
Do you get that premise?
Yeah, and in fact, it stipulates in the Quran that there'll be messengers sent to every nation speaking their own language.
Correct. So then so those are some fundamental premises that if they gave me 2 minutes to speak, I would be able to lay all that out. You know what I'm saying? Like here we're discussing back and forth, so it took a little bit longer.
Mhm.
But if they gave me 2 minutes, I could lay that as a foundation, and then I could go to what you understood it as, which is these Qurans. Firstly, all these Muslims who are saying you need to know Arabic and they're criticizing other Qurans that are in English. Notice none of these people are taking the time to translate their own Qurans.
Facts.
All they're doing is saying, "Oh, well, I don't agree with that word. Well, I don't agree with that context." But then, so what if I bring another Quran? And that's the reason I use corpus.quran.com as an example that has 7 of them that I can read at the same time, and I can infer on certain points. If one word is translated in one translation, and then 4 of the same words on 4 other translations, I know which one was a personal bias and which one is more direct to the word. You get what I'm saying?
100%.
So, and then my issue with them is what you're saying is you do not have a problem. Your problem. Okay, let me rephrase this. Really, in your mind, you should be having a problem with the people publishing these Qurans and not me for reading them. Because if I believe in them, if I believe in it, then you don't have an issue with me believing this Quran's translation. But when I criticize it, then it's either I don't know Arabic, or the Quran that I'm using is one that is leaning to a different scholar or a different sect, which brings up the brackets. That leads to the brackets. The brackets and the parentheses, and I mention this to Muslims all the time when they start quoting their even when they're on the channel, and they'll be like, okay, let me read this. They'll read it and then they'll add the parentheses, and I'll write down in the chat, I didn't know Allah spoke in parentheses. I didn't know that Allah used brackets. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is something that is foreign to me. And and this brings up the point that you were getting at, that you felt I was making, which is these schools of thought are the ones that are pretty much publishing the Qurans. Okay, now I have an Oxford World's Classic Edition. And the reason I think this one, and I've read it, and I think it's probably one of the best out there, is because it's not published by an actual Islamic institution. It's published by somebody who's more of an academic, and he does give footnotes and stuff, but he uses the numbers, right? He uses numberation for you to look down at the very bottom and see if you want to research why he said such word, or which school of thought goes with which. Okay, now all the other ones are being published by Islamic institutions with certain degrees of bias, if not complete bias.
Facts, big facts.
Now, maybe if you want to, you could look up this Quran, and it's the Quran, a new translation by M.A.S. M.A. S. Abdul Halim, Oxford World's Classics. Maybe you could read it and you would disagree with me that this is a pretty good translation, because it tends to not like propagate certain things. Now, yes, it did have the word yet in the bracket of whatchamacallit, 65.4. But this is not an Islamic institution. That's obviously the person who wrote its belief of the tafsirs and the hadiths that he's read. So he added it in to give his personal reasoning of where the Quran was going with context.
But not to mention, though, on a scholastic level, and this is why I don't have an issue with the translations, because on a scholastic level, I'm going to compare and contrast the different translations and stipulate okay, like this is the most common understanding of the meaning. Do you know what I'm saying?
Correct.
And so I can't knock him for that, particularly because the meanings, again, from the translations come from the tafsir, which come from the hadith, which come from the Qurayshi understanding of the Arabic, which is something that was instituted by Uthman after the burning and whatnot, which changes the meaning even of the previous stuff, right? So I can't knock any of the so-called bracketry going on and whatnot, but I agree with the sense to where like Muslims should be coming up with their own translations on stuff, because even nowadays, if I go with the 30 some odd different translations of the Quran in Arabic, there's differences in the Arabic of those Qurans. And most Muslims don't even know that until they're compared in front of them.
And a lot of them will just straight up deny it, even after they see the proof. They'll say, oh, this has no meaning. But even inside their hadiths, Muhammad admitted that he was given 7 different dialects of the Quran he had to memorize 7 different dialects of the Quran. And there was one of his companions who said some guy was reciting the Quran to people, and it was a way he had not heard. So he took the person to Muhammad, and the guy recited it to Muhammad, and he said, yes, this is one of the 7 ways to say the Quran.
Yep.
But when you bring that up, it's like pick and choose, cherry picking what hadiths they want to follow. Just like Zubaydah, when she was mentioning, she said that the hadiths have no influence on her deen. Well, if that was true, why is she praying 5 times a day? Because as far as I know, Quranists, most of the Quranists, like Sam Garens, I watch. I can't remember the other. There's like 2 more Quranists at least that I follow. Sam Garens is a good one. I like him. But he prays 3 times a day. He fasts 1 day a month. That's his belief as the interpretation of the words that are inside the Quran. Now, of course, hey, anybody can do things different, because according to his belief and his translation that he created himself, so I got to give him credit for that. He took the time to actually, and he self-published. What he's saying is, it says in the Quran, when you see the moon, and he says that he infers that it's the new moon, because Allah speaks in the Quran that the sky is for calendars and for guidance. So he says when Allah is speaking about the moon, he's speaking about a new moon. He says fast on it, which means I fast one day a month. And Allah says you can fast more if you want to, but all you have to do is what's easy for you. Because the same verse 185 says that Allah has made the criterion easy for you. And another thing, how is it easy to try to memorize 7,000 fucking hadiths, bro? And follow your deen according to this guy, Muhammad, where also you need quote unquote hadith science to determine which ones are real and which ones are fake. And even then, over a century later, you have sheikhs coming out and saying that there is proof that that some of these hadiths inside of Sahih al-Bukhari are weak. So how does that make your religion easier?
Yeah. I mean, yo, like I was just having a conversation with Shia Isa, and he was talking about some hadith dealing with Abu Bakr or whatnot, which would call into question all of his hadiths, where he was quoting the Prophet, but he was quoting the Quran, but misquoting both of them. Like what he was saying couldn't be true via the Quran. Mm-hmm. And so it was like basically he was almost lying on the Prophet in the situation and lying on the Quran, right? And so at the same point, he was also acting like he was taking Fatima's property and whatnot, right? And so he was taking Fatima's property without a will. And so I was like, whoa, like the Quran stipulates that a man would have to leave a will. And so Abu Bakr was coming to Fatima saying, well, yeah, the Prophet told me that prophets don't have inheritance. And I was like, whoa, like that blew my mind. Because that's nowhere in the Quran, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
well,
like
also Isa, I got into it with Isa, and he still hasn't came back on my channel to refute his claim. But I got into it with Isa one day for about 30, 40 minutes because he was reading the brackets of the Quran, and he could not grasp for about 15 minutes that what I was saying was Allah doesn't speak in brackets. So just read the Quran to me. And then he reads it again. I said, no, just read the words that are allegedly in the Quran. So then when I finally broke it down, go to 120, go to 86 real quick. 186.
Yeah, I'm about to go to Quran.com.
But if you notice, 185 says he wants ease for his followers.
Yeah, I'm going to show you something crazy on the following verse as well, because they translate good tidings as sexual relations, bro. Like I did a 5-hour stream with Ahmed, and we were breaking down the verses having to do with Ramadan and whatnot, and we jumped on this part, bro. I was like, it blew my mind. I almost had to drop kick the Quran I got for myself. If a good friend did not give it to me, bro, I promise you I would have kicked it. You know what I'm saying? Like, because the stuff they say is, how do you just blatantly take good tidings, which never means sexual relations, and make it mean sexual relations out of nowhere?
I don't know, dude. It's just it's what people want. You know what I'm saying? They want. First thing, one of the big things I have with religion, and this is all religions, is that it's all about personal understanding. And if that person doesn't agree with, let's say, their preacher, their priest, their imam or whatever agreeing, they just go search for someone who does agree with them. Because you're always going to find somebody that has an interpretation similar to yours. You're always going to do that. And that's why there's a lot of runarounds with people talking where they don't have to agree at all on anything until they find somebody that does agree with them, and then it's bam, that's their new scholar, their new priest, preacher, whatever.
Okay, so I'm on 186 right now. And when my servants ask you, O Muhammad, in brackets, concerning me, indeed I am near, I respond to the invocation of the supplicant when he calls upon me. So let them respond to me, in brackets, by obedience, and believe in me that they may be, in brackets, rightly guided.
Now, here's what's funny. They have to add Muhammad. And this goes to the video that I was speaking about the other day, that, you know, okay, this makes a perfect example. Okay, if so beta, but she wasn't smart enough to think of this. When I mentioned the Quran verse that said, "We sent down an Arabic Quran easy for you." If she was smart enough, she would have said, "Oh, who is you? The you. The you is supposed to be all believers, all people." And then I could point out a verse like right here where it says, "And when my servants ask you, they have to put in Muhammad." So
Yeah,
that verse, so Islam, these people who are writing these translations are wanting you to know very quickly that this can only be Muhammad. But yet no translation that I have read with the verse that I said he has sent down in Arabic for ease for you ever says that in parentheses all Muslims.
right. What's crazy about that too is like look at the context of how they do it. Like they're taking a straight piss, bro. Like I'm gonna show you in the next verse as well. Like so, it says, and when my servants plural ask you concerning me, right? Like now, so it's got to be Muhammad. It can't be any other any other individual at that point in time. Like you're saying, like it doesn't make sense. Either this only applies to Muhammad, and so why is it in the Quran?
But it's not. But it doesn't only apply to Muhammad,
right? And that's what I'm saying. Like so, like that's the whole. Like so, they put his name in brackets more than his name is there not in brackets. You know what I'm saying?
His name, and also, and a lot of Muslims don't like this, but Muhammad is such a generic name in the sense it just means the praised one, which technically, if you think about it, every time it's even mentioned, they're just saying, "Oh, the praised one."
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're wanting to translate everything in the Quran. I've even read where the names of like Abu Lahi, you know what I'm saying, was translated in the Quran. You know, the man of fire, essentially. I think something like that. It's been a while since I read it, but they don't want to translate Muhammad. Just like I have a Quran by Muhammad Ali Maman or something like that, and he got a lot of criticism because he left in the word hadith, and people were pissed about that because what he's doing is he's showing that the Allah uses the word hadith, and it's always negatively outside of his positive hadith.
Yeah, look at this next verse too. 187 makes your point perfectly, bro. Like so, me and Ahmed went back and had to read. We retranslated this verse for the people, word by word, using the Quran corpus concept, right? And it was ridiculous. So at the beginning of it all, they make it all kind of sexual, and there's literally no sex anywhere in the verse in the Arabic. It says it has been. I'll read it first in English and then show you how we did in Arabic. It has been made permissible for you the night preceding fasting to go to your wives for sexual relations. Right then and there, they literally put in the word, like go to is the word in Arabic, right? And then they put in brackets for sexual relations. They literally say like it has two meanings at the same time, and they put it in the verse in English when you understand it. When you understand all this, like they're taking a complete piss, bro. Like it's hilarious. They're saying that this word aratafu can mean go to, or it can mean sexual relations, right? It can mean approach or sexual relations, and they literally put both meanings in the verse at the same time.
Well, this just goes down to that they believe that without their sect, you cannot understand Allah's words. That is the whole premise that we're getting here.
Right.
Now, even though Allah says completely, he even uses, if I'm not mistaken, and this was the thing with Isa, the black intellect that I brought up on my channel, and he tried to say he tried to be, oh yeah, I gotcha. Look up the word sect on this screen.
Yeah, Shia. No, I got you. It's a cold piece.
Yeah, and he was saying, oh, you see right there, it says Shia. I said, yeah, but it says do not become Shias.
Right. Don't exactly.
So then he said, I'll look into that more and I'll come back on your channel. I never heard from him again. That
was not me. Understand that was not me. That was my man. Why so religious? Although I don't disagree. That's exactly what the Quran says.
What are you talking about? Is he in the comments or something?
No, I'm just making that known for posterity, bro.
But no, he said he would come back onto my channel and he never did, dude.
Yeah, because it's there quite a bit. It's the don't divide yourself into sects. Don't divide yourself into sects. Don't divide.
It actually claims that it is like Christians performing shirk. I have all the verses on the side. I could actually read them to you. You know, I have them right here.
But Yeah. No, I looked it
Sects
up
in
the other day.
Islam. 159 of the Quran, 30, 331 through 32, 42, and 14 is when these words appear. And the point of it is, it was saying that it is similar to shirk, because what does I think it was Abraham, he said, what is best in speech outside and saying I am a Muslim, I am a follower of Allah.
Mm-hmm.
That is allegedly the best in speech for any person in the world to say.
Mm-hmm. So real quick, in Surah 2 at 187, watch how they play games right here. In the word by word, they'll show you that this word here is rafathu, and it means the approach here, right? And when I click on it, it'll show me that they use it for sexual relations in another verse. So
well, there's no L in front of it, and the A is different than the U.
So
well, go back and let me make a point.
Watch, here's what I'm saying. Like, so in this one verse, they literally give me both meanings. One there without the brackets, and the other one there with the brackets. But they play games, bro.
It is a triliteral language, and you notice the A is different than the U at the bottom. You see, in the other word, it has an A at the very end instead of a U. No, as a person who doesn't know Arabic, I don't know how this technically changes the word. But if you'll click on the other one, go back to the word for word, the word search, and then click on the other one.
Well, you can just see it right there. Well, it's probably small right there. Yeah.
Well, I want to see the context of the verse.
Oh yeah.
Hajj during the months known, so made therein there no relation. So I imagine that's the way that it's. Go to the word for word for me real quick. Okay, so then that one is specifically defined in the word for word as sexual relations. Now, what I would imagine is that the A and the U kind of change it in the sense that it's relations, and then the A becomes a more intimate relation. But as a person who doesn't know Arabic, I can't really say. You get what I'm saying? But in the first verse,
there's even discrepancy for it being able to mean sexual relation. Like so. But that's a whole other argument based upon how the roots work. And
the first one,
even the Hebrew of the Bible or whatnot, in the sense to where like the Torah and confirmation, it's like it doesn't mean sexual relation, like, but there is a concept of approaching, etc.
I would say that the first one that you showed on is that they don't think that Muslims can read that verse and understand that when you can go to your wives means that you're allowed to approach them at nighttime and have intercourse and try to produce children. They don't have enough faith in Muslims being able to understand Allah's words and the message. You get what I'm saying? So they add that in there because they just don't think that Muslims will understand it.
Yeah. Now,
you get what I mean?
Yeah, I'm with it, but like, so this is where it goes into what you're talking about. Watch how we retranslate this verse in its meaning when you actually check out the Arabic of it, right? Like, so they have this term basrahuna, right? It means have relations with them. Now, this means like, this is literally like bashir. This is like good tidings. And twice they use it to mean this concept of have relations with, and only twice, and in this one verse.
But how is the Arabic changed?
It's not. Hold on. It literally cannot mean the concept of sexual relations with the way the root is made. Like it doesn't have the possibility of even meaning that, right?
So on the verse, so the word under it, have relations with them. You notice it's tubashiruna.
Yeah, so, and basarahuna, right? Yeah.
So then, and then the one under that is wahabashu, which I would take as the AB. The absharu is the one that's actually good tidings, right?
That's the bashir part of it is.
Yes. So just looking at the translations, the way I see it, at least, is that's the root word of relations or tidings, and then after that, the other words is what changes the meaning.
Good tidings. It's not just tidings; it's good tidings, right?
Yeah, but do any of these words mean touching?
No, they have to do with the tensing of it all, of when and where it's happening, right? Like so and how it's happening. So that's what I'm saying.
It is a verb, though. That's why I'm saying.
Right? No, 100%. But here's what I'm saying. Like it in no other spot are you going to see it used for anything other than a glad tiding of some sort, right? So in verb form 2, it's to give glad tidings. In this one, it's have relations. In form 4, it's to receive glad tidings. In 5, it's to rejoice, right? In the sense of they receive, even then, it's talking about rejoicing and receiving good tidings, right?
I'm sorry, my son's playing.
No, you're good, man. Enjoy that.
I'll be honest, man. I'm ignorant on this, so I don't feel comfortable talking about it and making myself.
No worries. I'm already on the hook on this one because I made a 5-hour live stream talking about it. But like, so I'll just go to the English.
I'm not trying to avoid it or anything. I just don't want to speak out a term and be completely wrong, and then people could say, "Oh, well, look at why we're so religious, making claims about shit he doesn't even know." And I think anybody who watches me knows that I try to avoid doing that at all costs.
Yeah, this is me on the hook, right? And I'm just talking about something that I've already said on my channel, which is like, so in this verse where they're talking about, where it's all about sexual stuff at one point. Me and Ahmed broke it down to where it's actually talking.
You know what I just read? What verse number is this? I want to save this.
Surah 2, ayat 187.
So 187, this is actually what I was talking about. It was actually 2 verses that I was saying to go forward instead of 1, which is the Quranist claim that it is only 1 day of fast. If you read it, it says it is made lawful for you to go unto your wives on the night of the fast. It doesn't say that the nights of the fast. You get what I'm saying? Like, so.
Sure.
So it is specifically 1 night. But because the hadiths say that it is a whole month, they follow that.
So you say how you just said it to like go into, like, I hear you on the day part. I'm leaving that part aside. But like, so you know how you just said go into or unto, like, so that has that sexual connotation again, right? And so what I get to show you in the word by word, it means the approach, right, or to approach in this situation, right? Like, so it's saying it is made permissible for you the night preceding the fast to approach your wives. And it says now they're in brackets sexual relations, which is giving the dual meaning now. So they're playing games with it, right? So this word for clothing can also mean the concept of they are the keepers of your secrets in a sense, right? Like, so the way I'll just say like this: the way me and Ahmed translated this verse, when we took the sex out of it and put the direct translation in, it became more of you're teaming up with your wife the night before the fast, and you're learning the basics of the Quran. You're reciting them back to each other, like declaring the good tidings back to each other and whatnot. And so they take words for good tidings and translate them for sexual relations. So watch how it sounds when we translate it our way, right? In terms of just making, where it says good tidings everywhere else, we're going to say good tidings here, and where it says the approach, we're going to say the approach and not sexual relations and whatnot. So it has been made permissible for you the night preceding fasting to approach your wives. They are the keepers of your secrets, and you are the keepers of theirs. Allah knows what you used to see. That Allah knows that you used to deceive yourselves. So He accepted your repentance and forgave you. So now have good tidings with them, or now declare good tidings with them, and seek that which Allah has decreed for you. Again, talking about like the basics of the Quran, and He talks about eating and absorbing until Ahmed talks about eating and absorbing because there's no food here directly talked about. So he's talking about eating and absorbing or consuming and absorbing the basic tenets or the decrees or whatnot, what Allah has decreed. Eating and absorbing until the white thread of dawn becomes distinct to you from the black thread of dawn, or the black thread of night, which is in parentheses, right? So for him, he's talking about like and I don't necessarily accept all this part here, but I'm talking about what Ahmed says here. I don't disagree with it either, but like I have another way of understanding it. For him, he's talking about the white thread of dawn becoming distinct from the black thread, having to do with like understanding the difference between right and wrong. But this is where we do agree when he talks about like after this, then complete the fast until sunset, and do not declare good tidings, or do not give good tidings with your wives, as long as you are staying for worship in the mosques. And so we're talking about like, so if this is a newcomer in Islam, the one who's citing Ramadan for the first time, right? Like, so if you're not growing up Muslim, you're converting and whatnot. You're learning, you're teaming up with your wife, you're learning the basics and whatnot. And it's saying don't declare good relations, don't declare good tidings as long as you are staying for worship in the mosques, i.e., like the Quran specifies, don't speak about what you don't know, right? In other spots. So if you're a newcomer, you're not supposed to be out there giving dawah and calling people out like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is the perfect religion, all that kind of stuff. Like you should be in a position of learning and all that type of stuff. So you're not out declaring the tidings. You're there in the mosque learning and whatnot.
Well, I'm probably about to get off here. I'm sorry. I got a little bit of time before I get to work. I hope that I explained the concept that I was coming with adequately. And I would also say for these Muslims who are fasting all month, the verses that we just read, the night was singular and it was not plural. The night of the fast. Okay. And if Allah's words wanted it to be a whole month, he would say the nights of fasting, but he doesn't do that. So that's one thing that I'm going to try to remember to utilize the next time that I talk to a Muslim talking about, oh, it's Ramadan, the month of heat, right? What it pretty much it says. But so I guess I appreciate you allowing me on. I'm glad we had this talk, and I hope that I clarified what it was that they kept speaking over me and not allowing me to make. So if anybody wants to hear my position when this video is over, go to the very beginning, and the first like 10 minutes is Sunnah of Allah and I talking back and forth and me trying to describe what it is. My complaint is about this concept that, oh, you have to know Arabic to understand Allah's message.
Are you down to come down and have another conversation about Ramadan being a day or a month? Because I think that'd be a very good conversation.
Okay, well, you got my email now, right? Why so religious official
yes, sir.
at Gmail. Okay, yes, you just email me, man, and I check them at least every 2 days. Sometimes I don't, but you just send a date and time, and I'll let you know if it's good for me, and I'll always come on.
Okay, I'll send something from the orthodoxmore@gmail.com. So again, I have your information down below. So if you like what you heard, please like and subscribe to his channel and whatnot. I think Wise Religious is as an atheist, I think he's a very rational individual and whatnot. Very, very rational and whatnot. I enjoy his pushbacks on Islam as well.
And I don't just push back on religious people too. I'll push back on atheists too. It doesn't matter to me. You know what I'm saying?
Boy, like with Rob, I was loving your convo with Rob, bro, on morality. I thought it was going over a lot of people's heads, bro. I was hearing what you were saying. I was like, yo, this yeah.
And they were so, and as I said, they've been so manipulated that they cannot understand that my body, my choice ends the debate. You know, I'm trying to start the debate and they say, oh, we're debating now. No, we're having a conversation right now. And when I want to progress it to a debate, all you say is my body, my choice, her body, her choice. And
well, now we're speaking inside baseball. So right now we're talking about a debate over abortion.
You explain it to them, and we'll talk about it on a different episode. No you have a good day. I appreciate you having me on. Y'all be safe.
Have fun with your family, man. Peace. So yeah, that was the brother. Why so religious? Again, an atheist brother. If you like his information, please go check him out and subscribe to his channel. I'm definitely going to try to have him back on here with Ahmed at one point so we can talk about this Ramadan being a day or a month, because I think that would be an interesting concept to go check out. And I definitely have my perspectives on that I would love to compare and contrast to my other brothers and whatnot. And this is what I like about building with my QURANIST brothers and whatnot, is that for instance, you can see this in my build with Ahmed in our last build. That's that 5-hour stream that we did on Ramadan and whatnot. We're trying to come to the best understanding of God's word. So it's not like my translation, his translation. We're trying to say, what does the translation actually say? What are the words actually saying? And so we're gonna try to attack it from every angle to see what makes the most rational, logical sense based upon the reiteration of the Quran. And so to us, like that's what we're supposed to be doing for Ramadan. So to all the Muslims out there that are participating in their Ramadan, Ramadan Mubarak. And we appreciate your time. We appreciate your energy. We appreciate your rationale. Let me check out the comments right quick to make sure I'm not missing anything, because I'm bad at checking stuff when I'm live. Matter of fact, let me drop the link right quick to see if anybody wants to jump in. Because if y'all want to jump in, feel free to. I'm gonna drop the link and give y'all a couple minutes to jump in if you want to. There you go. Oh, Brother Omar Ben said, I showed your video on Ramadan to the channel Quran Centric. I asked for his opinion. Yeah, I've dialogued with him a couple of times. I would actually really like his opinion on how we broke down Surah to Ayah 187. At least the parts about dealing with the sexual relation parts and taking the sexual relation part out of it. I know a lot of people might disagree on the figurative aspect, and I agree with Ahmed on the figurative aspect of what he was talking about in terms of like separating the white and the white thread of dawn from the black thread, etc. I don't knock that in any way, shape, or form. But at the very least, like when we started talking about the sexual relations and the good tiding part, like that blew my mind. I would really like to see what Crown Centric has to say about that, because yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, if y'all want to jump in, feel free. I got the link in the chat. I see Quran Alone. Let's see what's Quran Alone saying. If you want to join 14-4, and we sent the messenger only in the tongue of his people. Yes, sir. Surah 30, Ayah 31, verse 32. Who divided their doctrine? Let me do it like this. Let me stop playing game. Bam. Who divided their doctrine and become sects, or changed their deen into religion? Shia. Oh. Said a black to black. They're talking about you, bruh. They want to know what you got to say about this. You know what I'm saying? I think, yeah, I got to get Esau to talk about this one. That'll be very interesting. But yeah. Yeah, so my email address, hold on, let me put it out there in the chat right quick. This is my email address for anybody who wants to come on or wants to get in contact. This is my email address. I'm gonna put that on the screen real quick for you. Let's see here. Bam. There we go. Bam. TheOrthodoxMore@gmail.com. And so if you would like to get in touch, we can definitely do so there. I would love to have as many Quranists on as we can have in conversations, because there's not that many rational dialogues about Islam in the Quran going on these days. Yeah, thank you very much, Brother Omar. Yeah, I look forward to getting in contact with her. And I appreciate you sending the information to Quran Centric, because I really appreciate his breakdowns on stuff. For instance, when it comes to Ramadan, I thought he had an interesting concept in terms of the month that it's actually found in, like being the 9th month of the year, or et cetera, whatnot, and what that has to do with the lunar aspect, and what it has to do with the sunrise and sunset in terms of how, like, so for instance, like a lot of people don't know that like the people in Norway, for instance, like they like most of the time when it's Ramadan for them, or a lot of times, like their days are off, so like they might have like the sun up all day, or 20 some odd hours or whatnot, right? So they don't have a proper sunrise sunset like the rest of the world does. However, in September, that's a different case. And so Quran Center was talking about the concept of Ramadan having the connotation of like the vapor coming off the rocks, and that there was 2 different periods of time that the Arabs knew as Ramadan, one being the beginning of the summer, I believe, and one being the beginning of the fall. And so, yeah, I really enjoy his breakdown on a lot of things. I differ on some things, but I would love to really sit down and build with him, because he has a really interesting style in how he deals with stuff. But yeah, with that, Omar says, hold on, let me put this up on the screen. I like this. He says, Omar says, just the fact that feeding poor people is way more beneficial than fasting is enough for me to doubt it. And I'm gonna say this: if you're gonna fast, you might as well feed the poor. If you're not gonna eat the food, you might as well give it to somebody else. I'm just saying. And I would even say, if you do it like that, do so like the way Jesus talks about it, right? To where, like, if you're gonna fast, don't let people know you're doing it. Just sidestep the meal, give the meal to someone who needs it. Call it a day. And don't forget to get acquainted to the decrees of Allah. But with that, I'm going to say peace and love. Wa alaikum salam and Ramadan Mubarak.